David's mother was a witch. She wasn't a wicked witch per se, at least not at first, but the people of the village looked at her with disgust, just waiting for an excuse to get rid of her. People fear the things they don't know or don't understand, but the community would never admit such a thing. The small, sleepy village presented itself as very elegant, and everyone pretended nobility and locked their disgust inside. This disgust for the neighbor who lets his bush grow over the hedge, the loathing of the prostitute who earns extra money out of wedlock and who can only do what she wants with men because of her innate beauty, and the disgust for the mayor who manage in his own pocket, and also his disgust for the rabble who kindly have to bend, the brother's disgust for the little sister who gets all the parents' attention. The people of this village wore masks and closed their darkness within. The village vicar thought it would be a good idea for every citizen to speak their most gruesome thoughts to a figurine on a regular basis. The church knows many saints who, like a Buddha of the Eastern teachings, stand as a kind of idol in a world without a clear image of God. You wrote your thoughts on a piece of paper and wiped your bum with it on a public toilet. That's how the priest introduced it. Dirty thoughts belong in a dirty place. That was the motto under which this bizarre altar was formed. A figure of a saint above a toilet? Some felt this was an ungodly idea, while the community's thoughts now festered in a toilet duct and manifested a calamity. Something arose in the shafts under the toilet. Something that feeds on people's pain and what they compulsively part with. Pure and deep hate. David's mother was a witch. She built little lucky charms for people who believed in them. A man actually got involved with her and got her pregnant. David could never understand the disdain with which the villagers looked at the witch. His mother also made him a little doll that was supposed to bring him good luck. But the witch went a little further in this case and transferred part of her son's soul to the inanimate object. Combined with other wards, this should boon her son, should protect. How wrong she was. One day, sweet and bitter smoke entered David's nostrils and made him startle. Bewildered, he traced the source of the stench and turned pale at the sight of a commotion in the village square surrounding a large fire. The child, like David, had to realize that it was the smell of burned skin and hair that filled his nostrils with an unbearable, pungent acridness, and the source was a woman, shriveling into a mummy shape, burning to death amidst that fire. Her screams were the most terrifying thing David has ever heard, and he asked a bystander who this woman was. When it was explained to him that it was the witch from the outskirts of the village, David ran away. Crying, he lamented all his hate and disgust while clutching his doll tightly. As it was the custom in that village, he threw the doll into the village's questionable confessional toilet as a channel of his sorrow and hatred for all the people. He ran away and was never seen. But the doll was slowly composing, and its shape was being twisted, and David's desperation seeped into all the horrible news and moments that were being played out in the septic tank below. Down here, all of this combined with the residual magic in the chrysalis to form a horrid golem whose muffled moaning could be heard from the toilet shrine at night. The next confessor would get a filthy surprise from below that would truly disgust all the villagers. You can't separate and lock up this negativity without it being fed and eventually hitting back. It stank terribly as the witch roasted on the pyre and her screams ripped through her vocal cords, leaving her only hoarse croaking in the future. In the future? Yes, she was alive, or something of that sort. Her magic had been benign, and she specialized in wards. After being burned, her magic powers helped her restore herself. But none of this made her forget the pain. Weakened from the effort, she pulled away and saw that her son was gone. She blamed on the villagers, whom she now believed capable of anything. Back in town, everything was smeared with feces, and large half-digested carcasses and skeletons littered the settlement. The witch didn't know what happened here, but she was sure they all got what they deserved. Fire, of course, cannot cleanse a soul of evil, but it can char and blacken a good soul. They all wanted to see a monster in her, and a monster was what they got now. Disappointed with the humans and in grief over the loss of her son, the witch took off her dress hat and lengthened it into a pointed hat with her magic. Her clothes turned dark, and her face twisted into a mad giggling grimace. She grabbed the nearest broom, sat on it, and used her now unholy magic to take off on the appliance. Helgrotha would now really make a name for herself as a witch.
You wanted a monster? Here you have one!
Was the last thing that echoed through the empty streets of the settlement, which no one talks about anymore. David's ways led him into the cities, and from then on he lived in the gutter, got to know the city and its people, sleight of hand and how to get money quickly. And he grew up. He saw what the church was taking. The same church that burned his mother at the stake took money from people in exchange for their sins, great or small. What kind of world was this? So, if you had enough money, you could do whatever you wanted with all the people around you? Poor people wallowed around the well-heeled citizens like maggots in the falling fat. And that's exactly where David wanted to see himself. On a pedestal, rich in material things, the dregs at his feet. With the death of his mother, he forgot what it felt like to love, to show kindness. His heart was locked deep inside him, like a warm log fire, lost somewhere in the endless bowers of an old mansion with walls so deep and pale that no light can ever penetrate. David learned how to read and manipulate people. Sometimes he also had to wash blood from his fingers. One day, staring trembling at his hands and that had just driven a dagger into a merchant's back, he washed until his knuckles turned white and sore. After that he bought a mask in a carnival shop and put on white gloves that slipped over his fingers like cheated innocence so that his fingers should never see again what cruelty their owner would do. This story has one of the true horrors. They are not always lurking in a dungeon or bottomless cave. They lurk in you and in me and in everyone. There is a shadow in our chests. But there is also a light. And it is not predetermined which side will ultimately have the authority to act. But there is a monster inside everyone, and we create our own nightmares through the desire to banish and avoid them. Where is this taking us? Just deeper in.